So can PR help secure public funding? Might it actually bring some pressure to bear on those people who control the public purse strings? Let's look at the Shepherd Centre in Sydney as an interesting example. It's a leading provider of clinical and educational services for hearing impaired kids. But by early 2010, was facing some pretty significant threats to its public funding. The New South Wales government was already providing the lowest proportion of overall funding compared to the contributions of state governments in other states. And in the ACT, the local government had written to the Shepherd Centre in 2009 confirming that its funding wasn't going to be extended any longer than June 2010. On the horizon were political elections both in New South Wales and the ACT. And so the Shepherd Centre set about using that political context to deal with the funding challenges that it faced. So it began in the ACT with a media relations campaign which aimed to raise awareness about the damaging implications of the decision by the ACT government to cut local funding. So this reactive program was supported by seasonal media relations efforts which used the back to school angle as an opportunity to trigger positive stories in local ACT media about the positive work of the Shepherd Centre and the remarkable results it was generating. The ACT phase was effectively completed with the media relations campaign and media release in February 2011 headed Shepherd Centre Secures ACT Government Support in Canberra. In New South Wales, we issued a media alert asking journalists whether they actually knew that the Shepherd Centre funding was under threat and whether they knew that the state government in New South Wales provided the lowest proportion of funding to the Shepherd Centre compared to the funding provided by governments in all of the other states and territories. This generated a series of media stories and 2UE took up the cause, running an extended interview.
I want to bring this to your attention. This morning we've spoken a little bit about the misplaced finance of government in this country, but I reckon when I tell you the organisation that has its hand out, you like me will wonder what we're missing here.
And also led to the Palin communications team working with Channel 10 on an exclusive expose which really put the issue of Shepherd Centre funding on the state political agenda.
Despite a recent parliamentary review revealing a crisis in disability services, the Keneally government has now been accused of refusing to provide adequate funding for hearing impaired children and their families.
The New South Wales phase was effectively completed in March 2011 with a media relations program and a series of interviews triggered by the release, which was headed Shepherd Centre Secures Emergency Funds from the newly elected New South Wales government.
More children will get that chance after today's $100,000 funding boost announced by the Disability Services Minister.
If you do this style of PR well, it means that PR can end up paying for itself because your PR investment ends up securing funds from separate sources. Now, anybody who watches TV or reads the newspapers will have seen numerous examples of this in the pharmaceutical sphere. Pressure being brought to bear on political decisions that have implications for access to new medicines in Australia. And when that style of PR is done well, it can look like this.
Medical specialists are taking the unusual step tonight of speaking out on how difficult it is to give the best treatment to children with arthritis. There are powerful new drugs that can save them from being crippled. Trouble is, those drugs are very expensive and the government won't pay.
People are investing in these kinds of initiatives because combining a well-targeted lobbying program with a high-profile media campaign has a long history of success in the Australian healthcare sector. People are investing in these programs because they expect eventually to get a return on their PR dollar. And based on experiences in the private and the public sector in Australia, who's to say they are wrong? So if you want to find out a bit more about any of the projects we've talked about in this blog, go to palin.com.au, or if you want to email me directly, my email is down the bottom of the screen.